This video is going to be my reaction to the Ravens' 34-10 win over the Texans in Saturday night's divisional round matchup. A game that was certainly not fun to watch for much of the first half as a Ravens fan, and the scales there tipped completely in the Ravens' favor thereafter, dominating 24-0 performance in the third and fourth quarter. Ravens really sucked the life out of the game and took control with 2 offensive drives and only 1 stop in bridging the third and fourth quarter. Texans really didn't get much opportunity to do anything with the football, being stopped twice, and next thing you know, they're down 31-10 when it had been 10-10, I think 18 minutes or maybe 19 minutes of gameplay earlier. We would be remiss if we didn't mention how much difficulty the Ravens had in dealing with 5- and 6-man blitzes in the first half, because I think that sets up how unique this win was. Was it the Ravens rusty from not playing last week in the bye and resting a lot of starters in week 18? I don't know. I mean, I don't care, but it's possible. I think that absolves the Texans of credit for their defensive game plan. I would rather apply credit to them for what they came in intending to do and what they adjusted to as the first half developed. Additionally, I think it removes any criticism of Todd Monken and our offensive players from the first half, which I think they deserve. Nonetheless, in the first half, I did think that Flowers was able to get open often. I thought he was open every time they showed a replay against everyone, but the Ravens were not able to get off quick passes, screens, rub concept, picks, whatever you want to call them, hot routes, or much of anything. As the first half developed more, the Texans clearly recognized it was having an impact, so they brought more pressure, and they generated 3 sacks in the last, I think, 4 minutes of the second quarter, where the Ravens really wasted 2 opportunities to double up, meaning get a score at the end of the second quarter and then get a score to open the third. Now, we know that it doesn't matter, but I use that as context to hopefully set up how amazing the second half was all the way around. More on the struggles with the blitz later. I think it'll be hard for people to not talk about Lamar in this game because of what he did in terms of 4 touchdowns, 100 rushing yards, 152 passing yards. It'll also be difficult to ignore what the defense did against the Texans team that came in here supposedly on fire. Really, Mike McDonald's group dismantled the Texans' offense for the most part. 10 possessions, really 9 for Houston. I don't count the one at the end of the second quarter, which was a kneel down. To that point, the game was tied at 10. And I know we were all unhappy, I was, and disappointed, frustrated with the offense. But the defense just kept chopping wood the entire 60 minutes. On the night, they forced the Texans to punt 5 times. Texans took a knee once, like I mentioned. They turned the ball over on downs 1 time on a failed 4th and 6 or 4th and 7 maybe, with about 5 minutes left in the game when the Ravens were already up 31-10, so the game was over. What was once a tie, 10-10 at the half, the Ravens flipped with 3 offensive possessions, their 7th, 8th, and 9th. And finally, after 30 minutes of inconsistency offensively and great play by the Texans, like I said, the second half, we played complementary football. The defense kept chopping wood, and the offense finally found their groove. I will talk about the possessions in detail here in a little bit, at least 2 of them. But the first one of the third quarter, we got the ball first. I was interested in why the Texans took the ball first to start the game. So we got the ball to start the third quarter, and like I said, missed opportunity to double up. But Lamar is 3 of 4 passing on this drive, including 2 quick passes to get the ball out. Not sure why it took us so long to do that, either from a coaching play call standpoint, from a Lamar throwing the ball standpoint, or from guys adjusting their routes. Whatever the situation was or the dynamic was, all of those people are possibly at fault to various extents. But this stiff arm by Likely on Desmond King was sick in the left flats. And then the 15-yard run on the designed QB draw I thought was brilliant. The timing of Lamar, the way he takes the snap and sets back for just a split second and then takes off, it seems to me to catch the defense in their drop. Now, they could have been blitzing in that situation, but they were not. It's also possible that we had 2 plays called in the huddle and Lamar didn't check out of the QB draw into something else because he thought he saw a particular look. But that one put us up 17-10, And then the 8th drive, 12 plays, 93 yards. Ravens got the run game going finally in those moments. I think Gus had 9-yard and 5-yard runs. Justice Hill had a couple of short runs, even though I thought he played really well tonight. Lamar converting the 4th and 1 from midfield. First of all, gutsy decision to go for it, up 17-10. And a beautiful play call behind Stanley, wide open, left flats. I think Lamar keeps it for 14 yards. That one I thought seemed to provide another option or element for the Texans to deal with that they couldn't handle. Everything in the first half was stationary, meaning it was either a handoff or Lamar in the pocket, and they knew where to attack. Their target was stationary. Even though Lamar is incredibly agile and athletic, there was no design or misdirection to move their target or aiming point. Maybe I'm not saying it in a way that makes sense, but this particular play, this 4th and 1, play action under center, boot out behind Stanley, and Lamar converts it. He also converted a 3rd and 2 with a short pass to Justice Hill in the left flats. And then on the second play of the fourth quarter, you have the fake quarterback sneak and the touchdown to Isaiah Likely, where I think he jumps over Derek Stingley, who played a pretty good game. He's a super talented guy. That made it 24-10. Game really, for all intents and purposes, the way our defense was playing, the game was over at that point. It only took 15 minutes, well, I guess almost 16, for the offense to score twice, sandwiched around just one stop by the defense. At that point, I think you could sense it, that the defense was going to be facing a totally one-dimensional Texans offense that really, throughout the game, was one-dimensional. You'll see that you probably already saw the team rushing stats already. Once we got another stop, a second, this one in the fourth quarter, a 3-and-out, mind you, the Ravens went old school and just capped their first playoff win in 3 years in classic style. 11 plays, 10 of which are runs. Really shocking to see the blocks on this drive. There were pancakes here. The pancakes had not existed prior to this drive that I noticed. I'm talking about en masse, maybe 2 of them on one play. Guys getting moved horizontally towards the sideline or even 4, 5, 6 yards off the ball. Runs by Gus, Justice Hill, and then the one by Dalvin Cook, who burst through for, I think, 19 yards. Looked like he was gone. I thought he was going to score. He looks pretty good to me. I don't know about what you saw. Based on what we saw tonight, I think he looks like he's definitely capable of helping us. Lamar eventually did throw one pass on the drive. Keep in mind, it's 24-10 at this point. Fourth quarter, we have the ball, and we're smashing them. But we run into a 3rd and 7. And this conversion to Flowers on snag flat into the boundary, Zay kept his foot, spun out for 11 yards. And then 2 plays later, Lamar keeps it on another play-action boot around the left edge. Looked like Ronnie Stanley, I believe, is looking back for some reason in the middle of the play. I'm not sure why. But Lamar gets in, and it's 31-10. What makes it so impressive is during the time period where we have scored 3 touchdowns, 6 plays, 55 yards, 12 plays, 93 yards, and 11 plays, 78 yards. During that time, the Texans have run 12 plays for 37 yards, 2 possessions. And so when I mention I was surprised that the Texans took the ball to start the game, you may say, well, Coach, I don't think those things are related. I'm coming at this from a personal perspective. We always played defense first because we always believed in our defense to get a stop. And it didn't work out this way in our favor in the first half from our offensive standpoint in this game. But defensively, you threw C.J. Stroud and those guys out there. They were rolling, and we got to stop. I don't know. I prefer to do things in the reverse order. I'm sure that a lot of offense guys and people who want to talk about the modern game would do things differently. Ravens clearly offensively shifted in the second half. You know, I've seen social media posts about Lamar cursing people out at halftime. Good. There's that gif of the little kid holding a microphone saying good. I agree with stuff like that. That sometimes you need that, especially in sports. Sometimes people need that in real life. The fact that it's Lamar doing those things doesn't surprise me at all. I'm surprised that it took us so long to adjust. In any case, we're getting the ball out quicker. So even if there was a blitz, the Texans had kind of opened up space for us to run onto. The following guys all had short catches in that 3-touchdown flurry, I guess I should say. Likely, Justice Hill, multiple. Aguilar had 2, I think. Of course, he had the touchdown on our 3rd possession. Bateman had 2, maybe 3 in that sequence. Flowers had the short catch highlighted by the 3rd and 7 that I mentioned. Really took control at that point. When it's 31-10, you can relax. Forgive me for over-explaining those 3 drives, but I think it's important because it's made all the more impressive by what the Texans did in the first half, their defense specifically. I thought they frustrated, attacked, out-coached, and in some cases out-physicaled our offense in the first half. And that's all of our coaches and players, including Lamar. We had run 30 plays before the half and had gained a total of 118 yards. It's not like we were giving up sacks throughout. We generally looked horrible against the blitz, but the 3 sacks occurred, I think, in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the second half. We did have the field goal on our opening possession and a touchdown on our third, but in my opinion, we didn't look prepared for the delayed nature of the blitzes from a play calling standpoint, from a recognition standpoint, or routes being adjusted by the receivers, or willingness to throw the ball into open space from Lamar. Credit to the Texans for the strategy. Complete breakdown on our end, if you ask me. Meanwhile, our defense made so many underrated plays to hold the Texans to just 3 points on the day, but highlighting the first half. I thought we were giving Stroud so many different looks in the first half that we yielded very little openings. Dalton Schultz had 2 catches on the right side. I don't think Nico Collins got loose for anything big in the first half. I thought his 29-yard catch was in the second half, but I could be wrong there. At one point in time, I'll tell you one dynamic I noticed about the Texans. They were very right-handed in their pass game. At one point, 7 out of 8 pass plays went to their right. And the only one that went to the left, I think, was like a design screen. Very similar to last week against the Browns, when I thought they were rolling Stroud out to their right to get him away from Myles Garrett. That trend, however, held tonight. And what it ended up doing was putting Ronald Darby in a lot of coverage situations because he's playing our left corner with Stevens on our right. Like I said, Schultz beat him twice on outbreaking routes. But other than that one sequence in the second half where Stroud hits Collins for 29 yards and then someone else, I think, on the very next play for a first down or close to it, Texans offense was quiet. They had 38 rushing yards on 14 carries, and 16 of that was on one run from Devin Singletary, who I thought often ran into the back of his offensive line because defensive tackles or inside linebackers were filling so fast. There just wasn't much space or running lanes there at all for him. And when you're one-dimensional against this Ravens defense, it's a tough situation to move the football. Focusing on Lamar, he finished with 100 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Added 152 passing yards, 16 of 22 passing, so efficient percentage-wise for 2 touchdowns. The early one to Aguilar near the goal line on our third possession. And then this one that I want to talk about for a moment, this fake quarterback sweep to our right, bunch right A, to Likely, which is, it's very interesting, the usage of it based on where we're calling the play, location on the field, and also when, what part of the game. So I want to reference 2 other situations where I know that we've ran this play. I do think we ran it one time in 2022, but I'm unable to recall it at this point in time. So the first time I can remember this play being called was 2021 on the road at Denver, first play of the fourth quarter. It's a rollout to our right, bunch right A, and it's from the 30-yard line. It ends up being a touchdown to Andrews. It's like sprint out. It gives Lamar a chance to run to the right, out of bounds maybe, or maybe if there's something there, he can scramble. But it's a pass play from the jump. It's a designed fake sweep with run blocks and one tight end leaking out. In this case, 2021, first play of the fourth quarter against Denver, it goes for a long touchdown to Mark Andrews. Now, if you recall, it got called back for a hold on our backside left tackle. I thought it was a weak call, but it was definitely a hold. For the play to be way over to the right, it was an interesting call for me. But anyway, we also ran it against the Saints last year. First quarter, touchdown to Likely from the 29-yard line on a 1st and 10. Tonight's version, a 2nd and 1 to Likely, again from their 15-yard line. If I recall correctly, Likely kind of jumps over Stingley for the touchdown to make it 24-10. The similarities to me are really interesting, and you're talking about 2 different offensive coordinators. It makes me wonder honestly how much input Harbaugh has in some of these situations from an offensive play calling standpoint. And it makes me suspect that his involvement may be some of the reasons why we have more holdover offensive concepts this year than maybe a lot of us would have predicted. You got three situations where we've used that play. Two of them to open, or in this case tonight, the second play of the fourth quarter. The other one against the Saints is a 1st and 10. In all of those situations, it's a take it if it's there play. If it's not, throw it away since you're outside the pocket, or run. It's just something I've noticed and I wondered about. Anyway, back to Lamar. His 100 yards rushing tonight led the team. Um, we ended up with a crazy number of rushing yards after I thought getting kind of shut down in the first half, except for 2 scrambles by Lamar. We overall as a team finished with 42 carries for 229 yards. Justice Hill was 13 for 66. You can see it right there. And then Gus 10 for 40. But he did convert one big third down, I believe. Dalvin Cook had 8 carries, most of which was when the Texans knew we were running the football. But his 19-yard run, to me, looked pretty explosive. It did seem like both teams were going to shut down the run game in the first half, which is what makes, for me, our combined rushing numbers at the end of the game so impressive. Now, to link that to our inconsistency or downright ineptitude offensively in the first half, the dynamic was similar to the first game against the Texans, where our run game wasn't dominant. And in that game, week 1, after Lamar scrambled for 2 first downs or 2 big gains, the Texans started to bring pressure more. Talking about week 1. Same dynamic occurred tonight. It's because DeMeco Ryans or whoever's calling their plays, we know it's DeMeco Ryans calling the plays, but he might be someone's suggestion he's communicating with, hey, we can't stop him from scrambling if we only bring 4 or if we bring these set of blitzes over here. I suspect their blitzes were column-oriented or organized, meaning one column was their 4-man blitzes or maybe a 3-man. Second column was their, okay, we're going to bring some pressure but still a little bit of a safe blitz. And then the third one, we're going batshit crazy here and we're bringing 5 or 6 and we're going to make sure he has to throw the ball. He will have no chance to escape because all escape lanes are filled. I think in week 1 and tonight, as the first half developed, they started to err on the side of those batshit crazy columns and let's get after them. Because it was successful. The more pressure they bought, the worse we got against it in the second quarter. My impression was Monken's play calling was quite poor against the blitzes. It seemed like receivers weren't even recognizing that a blitz was coming. Now, granted, it was a delayed blitz, so they didn't know. But that's part of the game. That's part of the game, and give credit to the Texans for delay blitzing, number 1, but I think we deserve a lot of criticism for not having better play calls installed to replace people or pick or rub concepts, make things more clear for Lamar and the receivers where the open space was, because I thought there was open space to run onto. Now, whether receivers were open or not, to fit your definition, that's fine. In the NFL, you're not going to be wide-ass open all the time. There's going to be times where your quarterback has to throw the football onto open space and a receiver has to go make a play. I did think Zay Flowers was open often enough tonight to warrant getting him the football, no matter who guarded him, and that includes Derek Stingley. But in any case, look, you can't do much when your run game is shut down and your quarterback has constant pressure in his face, which to me makes the second half just look so much more impressive. Now, what percent of the blame gets applied to each person, the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the quarterback, the receivers? I don't know. But all of those people deserve some questioning as to why things were so bad in the first half. I don't think we can afford to do that in every game. Certainly, we can't expect our defense to just shut people down every single night. No screens, which is crazy because we use them so much at times this year. No rub concepts. Now, look, snag flat is kind of a pick or a rub concept, but we rarely actually try to pick the DB. We're really trying to run our snag route and get ourselves open. Also, no misdirection, no move in the pocket. Lamar was a stationary target for the blitzes in the first half, and I think he's just too talented to allow teams to tee off on him like that because we saw what happened as soon as he got a little bit of space. It was over. I want to credit the Texans for the delayed nature of their blitzes, but this time let's look at some of the formations. Some of the possessions that really turned the game in our tide. This is the 7th possession, first one of the third quarter, and we come out throwing quick. Aguilar, quick pass out of Tripp's left. I thought he was the number 2 receiver here. So interesting to me that he came onto the space inside of the nickel defender, between the nickel and the inside linebacker for 9 yards. Then likely on the one against the nickel, an out route against Desmond King, who I thought they could target going into the game. A couple times they did, but we didn't get to it as much as we wanted out of man coverage for the Texans, that is. Quarterback sweep here. I wasn't sure I really liked this one. To be honest, we'd only gained 3 yards. And then Bateman, a late throw against a 5-man blitz. I don't mean late from a Lamar perspective. I mean, it looked like he looked at one read and then came back to Bateman. This is the one that went through Petre's hands on a blitz. The next play is a very similar pass concept to something we've been using since like 2020. 2 tight ends to our right. One of them runs up the hash and the other one kind of widens but still runs a vertical. Lamar just reads the safety. Petre went with Kolar and then peeled back and nearly intercepted it. Sick play by Petre. I have to give him credit. I mean, maybe Lamar could throw the ball an instant earlier, but I think Petre has an idea of what the concept is. And then when he sees the tight end run up the seam, he's prepared for it and peels back on it. But I could be wrong. 2nd down and 10 play, QB draw up the middle. That was brutal from a Texans standpoint. How do you deal with that? They're dropping out of there. It didn't look like they were bringing pressure. They're dropping out of there, and then the draw is just wide open. Gus is used as a lead blocker. I think there's 2 offensive linemen there. It really looked easy on this drive, I thought. I don't know what your perspective was. I was shocked because of how difficult things were in the first half, and we came out here and went right down the field on them. You can see 4 plays of 9 yards or longer. 8th possession was really no different, other than we got the run game going, like I said earlier. Gus for 9 yards opened the drive, and then the third play here I thought was cool to see. Bateman over the middle. There's a lot of time. Thought the Texans brought a 4-man rush here. If I remember correct, the broadcast team showed the end zone angle of this kind of behind the offense, and you saw Bateman running his route from left to right. I think it was a 3-receiver route, so max protection was there for 21. Flowers underneath against Stingley. I think there was a blitz here. Kind of thought the blitz was coming on the 2nd and 5. I was glad to see us run the football. I'm talking about the 5th play down from the top now for you guys. It's trips right closed. And I'm going to show the next possession because there's an element of disrespect here with the way we called plays in the second half. We went to the same 2 play calls repeatedly, and it was working, particularly on the next possession, the 9th one I'm talking about. A lot of it was out of trips closed. So 5th play down, 2nd and 5 from the -47. Justice Hill on a counter play for 3. Justice Hill for 1 yard on the very next play, and then the boot keep by Lamar for 14. I thought this was a cliff for the Texans defense. It's only 17-10. We haven't scored here. We're still late third quarter. But as it turned out, I was right. This was a moment where the Texans realized, if they move this guy out intentionally, now we've got to deal with split flow. You guys may hear me talk about that in some film study videos. Split flow is like one running back going one way and the second running back in the backfield going the other. Well, most teams in the NFL and a lot of high-level college teams only use one running back in the backfield with the quarterback. So in this case, it was one running back. It was ace under center. Ace means one running back in the backfield. He goes to our right, the offense is right, and Lamar boots to our left, split flow. Now the defense, what do they react to? Well, some of them are supposed to react to the running back, and someone's supposed to stay on boot. No one did. Stanley leads around the edge for 14. Late pressure again on the ensuing play. No gain on an incompletion. And then Justice Hill, I thought he got the first down clearly, and then they showed the replay, and he didn't. He was 2 yards short. It was like, come on, Justice, you got to have a little bit more awareness than that. Then the beautiful completion from Lamar to him into the boundary, return motion. It's the 3rd and 2 from the 27. That was a great decision by Lamar to just take it now. You recognize we only need 2 yards. Let's just take it. Justice returns back into the boundary post-snap and gets the first down easily. That was a play where Steven Nelson got hurt. Kind of unfortunate because the dude's had such a great year for them, if you ask me. Offsides to end the third quarter. Gus for 4, and then the aforementioned fake QB sweep to Likely for 15 yards to put us up 24-10. Like I said, for all intents and purposes, the game was over at that point with how well our defense was playing. No disrespect to C.J. Stroud, but tonight was just not a night where Him and the offense was getting a whole lot done in the run game at all. And then in the pass game, extremely inconsistent. I think he was 19 for 33 on the night for 175. Ninth possession, the one that absolutely finished it off. We get the ball after our second stop, a 3-and-out, early in the fourth quarter. And this is what I mean when I say kind of disrespectful. Look at the fourth column from your left. It should be labeled formation for you guys. And just track it vertically down from the top. It's all trips. And even Trey, the eighth one down for you guys, or I guess seventh one down, Trey Wright is still three receivers to one side. The only difference is now there's one tight end and then the fullback Ricard, because you can see both instances of Trey Wright under center is 21 personnel. So it's tight end, fullback right next to him in a wing alignment, and then a receiver lined up outside of that. That's the one where Dalvin Cook had a 19-yard gain. I got it listed as 20 from the 47 to the 27, but they have it as a 19-yard. All runs here except for the one pass to Zay Flowers. Texans defense was done. And I do want to make a point about the blitzing, something I wonder, and I'm not claiming that this is true. I'm just interested in the dynamic. They blitzed a lot and played a lot of man in the first half. And I thought after that scramble by Lamar, you saw a difference in their speed level. Maybe not, but you definitely did on this possession, where we just pretty much obliterated them physically, moving people horizontally and vertically in the run game. And then Lamar keeps it again on a boot behind Stanley. I think it's the one where Lamar runs down the tunnel. It's 31-10 at that point. I don't know about you, but I relaxed. My children, who are 2 and 5, are downstairs making noise, and I'm trying to focus on the game. And after that, I was pretty relaxed. So I ran downstairs and was able to talk to them for a minute and just tell them hello because, realized that the Ravens were definitely going to get a win and host the AFC Championship game. These three possessions were amazing. As much criticism as I have for Monken for the first half, have to give him all the praise for those three possessions. Defense, although we weren't able to sack Stroud, who's very athletic, a different athleticism than Lamar, clearly. We did have 5 quarterback hits and a number of pressures. I thought Matabike, Clowney, Travis Jones, I thought all of those guys had moments where they impacted Stroud's ability to throw. One thing about Matabike, the failed fourth down pass by Stroud in the fourth quarter. I think it's their next to last possession. Matabike's zone drops out when we blitz Millette off the edge, which was highly effective tonight. Matabike's in the window. It's slightly overthrown, or maybe not overthrown, maybe out of the reach of the wide receiver, but Matabike is right in the window dropping out. Really unbelievable how athletic him and Pierce are on these, I call it the glitch blitz. I did a video about it earlier in the season. I'll try to link it up here. You guys can check it out if you want. Where Millette blitzes off the edge and the D tackles engage an offensive lineman to occupy him and then drop out. They're just getting in the window. A couple other guys defensively. Van Noy had that critical stop on a third down run by Singletary. Halfway through the second quarter, it's a 3rd and 1. We're up 10-3. The Texans have just closed to 10-3, I believe. It's a hurry-up 3rd and 1 situation. Van Noy stunts inside to make the tackle, forces a punt, and the Texans had just scored. Now, unfortunately, our offense was unable to get anything done on the ensuing possession, and we give up a punt return for a touchdown at the middle. It's a gut punch when you give up a punt return in the first place, but when it's a middle return, like Aikman mentioned, that sucks even more because it feels like they're just directly at you, and you're unable to stop it. Ties it at 10. I thought it was real mismanagement by the Ravens offense late second quarter. Those 2 possessions in the final 4 minutes, you're in great position to double up and unable to get anything done. The Texans get 3 blitzes in those 2 possessions. But defensively, a little bit more focus here. Darby and Queen were clearly targeted a lot early, I thought. And going back to that right-left imbalance of Stroud's passes, to me, the last 2 weeks, it looks like it's 65-35. But if there's Texans fans that have listened this long, maybe you have more concrete info on it than I do, or maybe it's something that stretches throughout the season. Early on tonight, 75-80% of their passes were going to their right, our left. I wonder if that's because Darby was over there. Schultz did beat him twice. To bring this all together, look, the reality is to hold a team that just averaged 8.1 yards per play against the Browns, to hold them to 3 points is a incredible defensive performance, I think. Now, I'm not. Some people would say, well, coach, they scored 45 points against Cleveland, but 2 of them were pick sixes. Okay, that's true. But they still averaged 8.1 yards per play on offense. Stroud was 16 of 21 passing against the Browns. Tonight, he was 19 of 33. And the Texans averaged 4.5 yards per play. That is right in line, I believe, with the Ravens defense on the year. Maybe it's a little bit above, actually, in terms of how many yards we allow per play. I thought the Texans early on recognized that they could not line up and just run the ball consistently. And I thought their play calls were a little irregular at times to reflect that, to get us moving one way and then attack us the other. There was 2 consecutive fake reverses in the first half. Then there was the flea flicker screen to Hutchinson in the second half that lost 5 yards. It did take 4 guys to tackle him, which I thought, they highlighted it on the replay. Great, we had a tackle for loss, but it's like we shouldn't need 4 guys to finish him off. I think that's a really talented team and a well-coached defense. I think with Tank Dell and whoever they draft, that this Texans team will be right back here next year. No doubt about it. I think they're a difficult team for anyone to match up with now, let alone next year after they're able to draft, hopefully from their perspective, really well like they did this year. They got C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson in 2 of the first 3 picks. They swung for the fences, and maybe they didn't hit a home run in terms of winning the Super Bowl or getting to the AFC title game. I think they hit a triple that they possibly could have stretched into a home run. This is a very talented, tough team, and that's what I think makes this win so sweet. In terms of who I'd like to play, I frankly don't care. There is a part of me that would like to defeat the defending champions, don't get me wrong, but I think this Ravens team can match up with anybody, and to beat them, you're going to have to play really well for 60 minutes, and from a Houston perspective, not to be disrespectful, they just were not able to match up to our physicality on both sides of the ball for 4 quarters. Appreciate you guys' time, man. Let me know what you think of the reaction video, the drives or possessions that I chose to highlight, and credit Monken and Lamar and everybody on the offense. The 7th, 8th, and 9th possession, bridging the 3rd and 4th quarter, where we scored 3 consecutive touchdowns after really struggling in the first half. Really cool to see how well we adjust. I think many people have talked about it on social media, that we're a different team. And there's a part of me, I won't lie, that wishes that we were more healthy the last 2 years because the talent level was there. But it's clearly here now and healthy now. And we're going to be a heck of a team to deal with in the AFC Championship game, man. I appreciate you guys' time. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this reaction video, then please consider grabbing a link to this, sharing it out on social media so other Ravens fans can enjoy this video too.